Hello, I'm going to do a presentation today about English linguistic. Today I'm going to give an explanations about English phonology and phonetics, English morphology, and English linguistics. So let's dive in first one by one. First of all, I'll be taking about, like I said before, I'll be taking about phonetics, phonology, morphology, and syntax, which are essential branches of linguistics. These fields help us understand how language works, from the sound we produce to the structures of the world and sentences. I'll go in depth to explain each topic, breaking them into subtopics with examples for better understanding. So let's begin our explorations of a linguistic concept by discussing phonetics, which is the branch of linguistics concerned with the sounds of human speech. Phonetics examine how these sounds are produced, transmitted, and perceived, and it provides the foundational understanding of physical properties of sound. This understanding is essential for the study of phonology, morphology, and syntax, as each of these fields builds on our knowledge on how speech sound functions in a language. So let's continue it. Like I said before, phonetics is the study of sounds of human speech. So phonetics have a lot of concern, and the scope of phonetics is first, phonetics explore three key areas. First, the articulations of speech sounds, and this refer to how humans use their vocal organs to produce specific sounds. Second, the acoustic properties of speech sound. So this involve studying the physical characteristics sound wave generated during speech. And the third is the auditory perceptions of speech sounds. This examines how listeners process and interpret these sounds. These three areas of phonetics are further covered by a subfield of articulatory phonetics, acoustic phonetics, and auditory phonetics. Now let's look at each of these fields in more detail, which will also lay the groundwork for understanding the phonology that follows. So let us discuss about phonetics. The scope of phonetics. So phonetics explore three key areas. First, the articulations of speech sounds. So this refers to how humans use their vocal organs to produce specific sounds. Second, the acoustic properties of speech sounds. So this involves studying the physical characteristic of sound wave generating during speech. The third is the auditory perceptions of speech sounds. So these examine how listeners process and interpret these sounds. These three areas of phonetics are further covered by the subfield of articulatory phonetic, acoustic phonetic, and auditory phonetics. So now let's look at each of these subfields in more details, which will also lay the groundwork for understanding the phonology that follows. Okay, let us discuss about articulatory phonetics. So articulatory phonetics is focused on how speech sounds are produced. It studies the roles of the lungs, vocal cords, tongues, lips, and other articulations or articulators in shaping sounds. Next, the vocal tract. The vocal tract is the system of organs used to produce speech. It includes first the lung, which is used to provide the airflow necessary for speech. Next, the vocal cord, which is used for control whether the sounds are voiced or voiceless. The third is tongues, which is used for manipulate airflow to create different sounds. And the fourth is lips and teeth. It's modify airflow to produce sounds like f or p. And the last but not least is palate. It is the roof of the mouth, which can be hard or soft. Influent sounds like k or g. So next, let us discuss about type of sounds. So speech sounds are broadly categorized into vowels, consonant based on how airflow is manipulated. So vowels is produced without significant obstructions to airflow. How to differentiate it? We can differentiate it by first the tongue hits. So high, for example, like E in the C, I in the C, or mid, which is E in the bat, or low, which is A in the cat. And the second is tongue positions, whether it is front, which is for example like I in the C, central like E in sofa, or back like U in boot. The last is lip roundings. So it is rounded, which is for example like O in go, or unrounded, which is for example like A in cat. Next, consonants. So consonant produced by obstructing airflow at specific points in the vocal tracts. It is classified by first place of articulations. It is where airflow is restricted. There's five types of displaced articulations. First, bilabial. It is where both lips come together. For example, like in p and b. Second is labiodental. So its lower lips touch upper teeth. For example, like f and v. The third is alveolar, which is the tongue touch the ridge behind the teeth. For example, like in t, d, s. And next is velar, which is the back of the tongue touches the soft palate. For example, in like k and g. And the last but not least is glottal. It is produced in sound chord like h. Next is manner articulations. Manner articulations is how the airflow is restricted. The same as the place of articulations, these manner articulations have four types of articulation. First is possessive, which is the airflow is completely stopped and then released. For example, like in p, t, and k. Next is fricative, which is air passes through a narrow space creating frictions. For example, like h and s. Next is affricate. It is a mix of plosive and fricative, as t, t in church. Next is nasal. Nasals is sounds produced when the airflow passes through the nose due to the lowering of the volume, which is the soft palate, while the mouth is closed or particularly closed. And for example, the word is, for example, demand, mother, island. Next is liquid. So liquids are sounds where the tongues create a partial cluster in mouth, allowing air to flow around it without frictions. Next is lateral liquid. So alveolar or lateral liquids is the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, and airflow flows around the side of the tongues. For example, in the word like, love, and fall. Next is acoustic phonetics. So let's move on to acoustic phonetics, which studies the physical properties of speech sound as sound wave. The key area include first the frequency. So it is the pitch of the sound. It is measured in hertz or Hz. For instance, vowel like E in C, vowel like I in C generally have higher frequencies than consonant like B. Second is amplitude, the loudness of the sounds. It is stressed syllables in English often have greater amplitude than unstressed syllables. The third is durations. So duration is the length of a time of a sound is produced. For example, vowels in stressed syllable are typically longer than those in unstressed syllable. Using tools like petrograms, linguists can usually analyze sound frequency and amplitude, offering valuable insight into speech pattern. Next is auditory phonetics. So finally, auditory phonetics is examine how speech sounds are perceived by human ear and produced by the brain. This will look at the physical. This will look at. First is the physical process of hearing, which is how the ear converts sound wave into neural signal. Second is perceptual distinctions. It is how listeners distinguish similar sounds such as s in sip and versus in sh and in ship. Next, voice and voiceless. So an essential distinction in phonetics is between voice and voiceless sound. Voice sounds is produced when the sound chord vibrates. For example, include b, d, and z. You can feel these vibrations by placing your finger on your throat while saying buzz, buzz. Voiceless sounds produced without a vocal cord vibrations. For example, include p, t, and sh. Saying his and notice that the lack of vibrations. Next, the speech transcriptions. So phonetic transcription use symbols from the International Phonetic Alphabet, which is IPA, to represent speech sounds precisely. For example, the word cat is transcribed as K-A-T. The word sheep is transcribed as IP. So the IPS serves as a universal system to capture sounds across language with unparalleled accuracy. Next, the applications of phonetic. So phonetic has numerous practical applications. First, language teachings. So assisting learners in producing unfamiliar sounds such as the English in thing. Speech therapy, the second one, is diagnosing and treating speech disorders. The third is forensic phonetics, which is analyzing speech patterns in legal cases. And the last but not least is artificial intelligence, which is we can usually say it as AI. It is enhancing speech recognition systems. With this comprehensive understanding of phonetics, we now transitions into phonology, which build on the concept we just explored to examine how speech sound functions within a language system. Next, let's move on into phonology. So phonology is the study of sound functions within a language system to create meaning, while phonetics focuses on the physical productions and properties of sounds. Phonology examines how these sounds interact and are organized in the mid of speaker. In the other words, phonology looks at the mental representations and systematic organization of sounds. The scope of phonology is phonology investigates three core concepts, which is phoneme. Phoneme is the smallest unit of sound that can be distinguished meaning. For example, the difference between p in pet and b in bat change the word meaning. So p and b are distinct phonemes. Second is sound patterns. It is how words are arranged and combined in a language. For instance, in English, in sing does not appear at the beginning of the word. The third is phonological rules. It is how the phonemes behave in specific linguistic contexts. For example, the plural suffix in English sounds like as in cat, bus, but z in dog. So basically, there is a rule how we say the words. For example, in cat, usually we pronounce the s is cats, but in dogs, usually we pronounce the s into dogs. Next, the key concept of phonology. So next, let's look at some important concepts in phonology. First, the phonemes. So phonemes are the fundamental representations of sound in a language. They may have multiple physical relations called allophones. For example, the T phonemes can have different allophones, like you can see in the pictures. Second, the minimal pairs. So minimal pairs are the minimal pairs are the pairs of words that differ by only one phoneme, which demonstrate the distinctiveness of that phoneme. For example, include like the picture I gave you. So in bit, it have a difference in initial phoneme, and the cat has difference in vowel. Next is distinctive feature. So phonemes are described using distinctive features, which are binary properties such as first, voicing, it is where the vocal cord vibrates. The second is place of articulations, it is where the sound is produced. And the last is manner of articulations, it is how the airflow is manipulated. So these features help distinguish phonemes and explain the patterns in which sounds occur across languages. And next, the phonological processes. So in addition to understanding phonemes, phonology also looks at how sounds change or behave in different contexts. These are several phonological processes that alter sounds in speech. First is assimilations. It is a sounds become more like a neighboring sound. For example, in put, the the sound is similar to the bilably p, changing it into n from n to m. Second, so we can say it as input. Second is elisions. It is a sound is omitted in rapid speech. The example is from friendships. Um, the the transcription, the phonetic transcription that I show you, you can see that the D is dropped. The third is insertions. It is an extra sound is added. For example, in sound accents, idea might be pronounced as ideary with insertion of the sound, which we usually know it as Australians English. Next is perceived pronunciations, or we can call it as RP. So a key example of phonological variation is received pronunciations, which is considered one of the standard in British accents. RP is often associated with formal speech and media. Characteristics of RP include first, the lack of regional markers, making it more natural in terms of geography. Second, the use of long vowels such as A in bath, which is pronounced differently with another non-rhoticity, meaning the sound is not produced unless followed by a vowel. For example, car is pronounced as a car in RP, while in many American accents is pronounced as card. Next, the phonetics transcriptions. As with phonetic, phonology also uses phonetic transcriptions to represent sounds. This is done using symbols from the International Phonetic Alphabet, which allow linguistics to represent speech sound precisely. Like you can see from the example I gave you below. And so IPA is a powerful tool that help linguistics to learn like transcript and study speech sound across different language and accents. Next is the phonological analysis. So phonologists perform phonological analysis to identify and describe the phonemes inventory of a language, syllable structures, stress patterns, and other important elements. First is phonemes inventories, the set of phonemes used in a language. Second is the syllable structures. It is the arrangement of consonants and vowels within syllables. And for example, in English, a common structure is C, V, C. as in cat. Stress patterns to emphasize place on certain syllables. For example, in the word record, the stress falls on the first syllable when it's a noun, but on the second syllable when it's a verb. Next is applications of phonology. So phonology has many practical applications. First, the language teachings. So understanding the phonological system of language helps learners acquire correct pronunciations. Next is the speech technology. So physiological analysis is used to improve speech synthesis and recognition systems. And the third is social linguistics. Phonology also helps to study how accents and phonological variations reflect social identity and regional differences. So with our comprehensive understanding of phonology, we can now move on to morphology, which look at the structures and formations of the words. While phonology focuses on sound patterns, morphology shifts focus to how words are constructed and what smaller units can call it as morphemes is comprise them. Next, let us discuss about morphology. So morphology is the branch of linguistics that study the internal structures of words and how these structures interact with meaning. While phonology studies on how sound functions to create meaning, morphology looks at how the words are formed, categorized, and modified to create grammatical relationships. The scope of morphology. First is the word formations. It is how the new words are created in a language. Second is word structures. So it is how words are made up of smaller units called morphemes. And the third is word classes and functions. So the roles word play in sentences, which is a noun, verb, adjective, and etc. The key concept in morphology. So let's us dive deeper into the key concept in morphology. So a morpheme is a small unit of language that carries meaning. For example, in cat is free morpheme, and the s behind it is a bound morpheme that makes the word plural. The second is the type of morphemes. So there's two types of morpheme. First is free morpheme and second is bond morphemes. So free morphemes can stand alone as the word. For example, like cat, dog, book, big, small, he, she, it. While bound morphemes cannot stand alone and must attach to other morphemes. For example, like in unhappy, this in disagree, suffix like ed in walk, and in fixed morpheme like in some Tagalog words like smulat, which is means to write. Next is morph and allomorph. So morph is the physical form of a morph. If, for example, the plural forms in English is as, the second is allomorph. It is a variation of morphemes that appear in different contexts. Next is the allomorph arise due to phonological conditions, which is sound-based rule, and lexical conditions, which is specific word-based rule. Next is lexeme. So lexeme is the base form of a word that represents a single concept. It is the abstract unit that encompasses the inflected or derived from a word. Next is a syntactic word. So a syntactic word refers to a word in specific form as it appeared in a sentence, reflecting its grammatical function such as tense, number, or case. It is essentially the words as it functions within a sentence structure. So syntactic words are the specific word forms used in sentence structure, representing the correct grammatical functions within the context. Next is orthographic word. So an orthographic word is a word as it written, with space separating it from other words. It is how we visually represent word in English. Orthographic words are those that are conventionally separated by space in writing and represent individual items of vocabulary. The types of morpheme by functions is first the content versus the function word. Content words are words that carry significant meaning. For example, like dog, eat, quickly. And function words are the words that perform grammatical functions. For example, like prepositions, conjunction, and determiners. Next is word formation processes. Morphology also studies how words are formed. Common word formations processes include first, derivational. So derivation is creating new words by adding affixes. For example, like from the past is happy, we add affixes which is became unhappy. Like beauty became beautiful, thrill became childish, inflections became other things. So the second is inflections. Inflections modifying words to express grammatical informations. For example, like cat they use as nouns, um, and it can count as singular, while when we put s in there, it became cats, and it is count or named as a plural. The third is compounding. So compounding is combining two words or more free moving. For example, like in toothbrush, there is two compound word. First is tooth, second is brush. So when they combine it together, they create a new meaning. The third is conversions, which is zero affixations. So zero affixations, also known as conversions, occur when a word's grammatical category changes without adding any suffix or prefix. The word remains its original form, but its functions in the sentence is changed. For example, like the verb is run, like for example in he went for a round, he for example the word is run, so if it used as a verb it can be I run from blah 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 blah. But when you make it and combine it together, when you do that together with a change the word class, it became he went for a run, which is a run in here is count as a noun. And the five is clipping. So clipping is shortening a longer word. For example, like telephone, we usually say phoned. Refrigerator, we usually say fridge. Photograph, we also say it as photo. And gymnasium, we say it as a gym. Next is blending. So blending is combining part of two words. For example, in blending is brunch, which is the combinations of breakfast and lunch. We combine together and it became brunch. 7 is acronym functions or formations. It is using the initial of phrase to inform a new word. For example, NASA is a acronym which is means the national, which is referred to National Aeronautic and Space Administration. Next, the applications or morphology. So morphology play a key role in various fields. First, in language teaching. So it helps learners understanding how words building techniques. Second, the natural language processing or NLP. It is enables machines to process and analyze word structure. The third is lexicography. Assist in a dictionary creating by breaking down words into roots, prefix, and suffix. The fourth is linguistic research. Explore how language evolve and form new words. Having established a solid understanding of morphology, we now move on to syntax, which focuses on sentence structures and the rules that govern words ordered in the sentence. So, finally, let us discuss about syntax. So, syntax is the branch of linguistics that studies the rules and principles for constructing sentence in a language. It looks at the arrangement of the word and phrases to create meaningful expressions and explores how these elements interact to form complex structures. Next, the scope of syntax. So syntax examines three kind of things in here. First is sentence structures. So it examines how words combine into phrase, clauses, and sentences. For example, the cat sleep has a clear subject, which is the cat, and predicate sleeps, if forming the complete sentences, which is we can visually say it as subject and predicate agreement. Second is phrase structure rules. So it is the rules that define how phrases are constructed. For example, a noun phrase is a combination of determiners and noun. This next is the hierarchical organizations. It is how the sentences are layered of the structures, which smaller units nest with large ones. This structure can be visualized through three diagrams. So syntax is essential for understanding how meanings arise from word orders and grammatical relationships. The way words are combined within a sentence can grammatically change the intended meaning. For example, changing the word order in the sentence, the cat sleeps, to sleep the cat, can make the sentence ungrammatical or nonsensical, depending on the context. The key concept of syntax. Let's dive deeper into some key concepts of the syntax. First, the sentence and phrase structures. So sentence is a large unit of syntax, and it consisting of a subject and predicate. For example, the dog barked loudly. The subject is dog, while the predicate is barked loudly. A phrase is a smaller unit within a sentence that functions as single part or speech. The major type of phrase include first, the noun phrase, which is a group of words that functions as a noun. Second is verb phrase, which is a group of words centered around a verb. The third is prepositional phrase. This is a preposition and its object, for example, on the table. These phrases work together to form sentences and convey complex meanings. A sentences like the dog barked loudly on the streets contain multiple phrases that each contribute to their own role. Next, the constituents. So constituents are building blocks of sentence structure. A constituent is a group of words that function as a unit within a sentence. Constituent can be simple or complex or words that work together as a functions unit. For example, in the sentence, the cat slept on the mat. The constituent is the cat, which is the noun phrase, sleep, which is the verb phrase, on the mat is prepositional phrase. You can test your constituents using two major tests. First, substitution tests. This involves replacing a group of words with a single pronoun or word. Second is movement test. This involves moving a group of words to a different positions in the sentences. Both tests demonstrate that the car, sleeps, and on the mat are all function as distinguished constituents within a sentence. Next is complements and adjunct. So in sentence structures, complements are adjunct are play crucial roles. First, the complements. So a word or phrase that completes the meaning of the sentence complements are necessarily for the sentence to make sense. Second is adjunct. So adjunct is add extra optional information. While complements are required for the sentence meaning, adjunct are not essential. Next is argument and grammatical functions. So in syntax, arguments are the required part of the sentence detected by verb. Grammatical functions describe the roles of this argument play in sentences. Let's look at an example, like I gave you from the picture. You can see that in there, John is the subject, Mary is indirect object. The direct object is the book. And next is grammatical functions help define the syntactic roles of these arguments. First, like subject, the entire performing of the actions. Objects, the entirety receiving the actions. Adverbials is provide additional information and are often about time, place, or manner. And there's all of the rules of the syntactic rules. So basically, subject is who are the actors. Object who are receiving the actions. That's it. So next is embed clause. So an embedded clause is a subordinate clause that functions as part of a large sentence. For instance, in sentence I know that she left, the clause that she left is embedded with the main clause I know. Embed clause often begin with words like that, who, or which they can serve various syntactic functions such as acting as a subject, object, or complement. Next is syntactic categories. So syntactic categories refer to variation group of words that performs similar function in sentence. This include first lexical category is where the traditional part of speech, including noun, verb, adjective, adverb, and etc. Second is functional category. These are grammatical words that serve syntactic functions. The first is determiner, for example, like words like the, this. Auxiliary verbs is words like I is, have, and will. Next is tree diagrams of powerful tools in syntactic for visually representing the structures of sentence. The show know how words and phrases are organized hierarchically within a sentence. Each node in the tree represents a grammatical category of a constituent, while branches show the relationship between different parts of the sentence. You can see from the example below. So basically, the cat sleep. It's divided into two phrases, noun phrase and verb phrase. After that, in noun phrase, of course, you have to divide again into two, which is the determiner and noun. And we can write it down and below there. And for the verb phrase, we can see that it only sleeps. So sleep is verb. So after we make a VP in there, we put P first. After that, we put the sleeps. So more complex sentence like dog has a dog can be broken down further using free diagram to make it easier to understand the structures. Next is syntactic ambiguity. So syntactic ambiguity occurs when a sentence has more than one interpretation due to its structures. For example, the man saw the boys with telescope. There's two meanings in there. The man used a telescope to see the boy, or the boy had the telescope and then the man saw him. So there's two meanings in a one sentence. So tree diagram can be used to illustrate these different interpretations, highlighting how a slight change in sentence structure can affect the overall meaning. And in conclusions, the field of phonetics, phonology, morphology, and syntax are all interconnected. Each of these building a foundation laid by others. Phonetic focuses on the physical sounds of the speech, which are then organized as systematically as a phonology. These sounds from the building blocks of word as explored in morphology and then come together in a structured way in syntax to create meaningful sentences. Together, this field provides a comprehensive understanding of how language functions both at the level of sound and at the level of sentence structures. With this comprehensive understanding, we can see how all the aspects of the language work together to allow us to communicate effectively. So that's all that I can talk to you. Thank you so much.